The Oklahoma City Thunder season is right around the corner, and it's time to grade your takes on this upcoming Thunder year. How good can they be? How many All-Stars will they have? You answered those questions. We're going to see how realistic you were on today's Locked On Thunder podcast.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and editor-in-chief over at thunderousintentions.com, Ryland Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, brought to you by FanDuel, we're going to grade your takes on our spicy pepper scale. Can the Thunder win multiple awards this season? Get multiple All-Stars this season? How many wins are they going to get? You gave me your takes, and I'm going to answer them on a scale of 1 to 5, how spicy they are and how likely they are to come true. Today's show, of course, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So, on today's show, we're going to start with the Thunder and FIBA and everything that goes with it. So today, on Friday morning, the FIBA World Cup is beginning. So use this podcast to get you to work, after work. Check back for this podcast that will recap the games that happened this morning. It'll be Australia, it'll be Latvia, it'll be Canada, all playing this morning. So a lot of Thunder stuff to dive into. SGA and Lou Dort taking on France is going to be the highlight of this slate of games on Friday. Right now, Canada is the second favorites to win FIBA entirely. For Australia, still a ton to dive into Thunder-wise. Obviously, Josh Giddey and the growth that he can show and him running a show of his own in kind of high-pressurized must-win games is going to be fun to follow. But Jack White should also get a lot of run with Team Australia, with the Boomers, because of the injury to Jock Landale. So he'll be getting opportunity. It'll be interesting to see how he tracks along there as a guy who's on the roster bubble, as a guy who's going to have to prove a lot this offseason and into training camp to stick around in Oklahoma City. Watching Jack White will be fun to follow. Now, NBA players, and even Shai, last year, whenever he played for the qualifying tournament of the FIBA World Cup, talk about a lot how important FIBA is to improving their skill set, to letting them develop and grow. And so with a ton of NBA players playing in this, and of course a ton of Thunder representation in this, it's going to be a must-watch event. Obviously, the games are going to come out extremely early, but the good news is now that we're past exhibition play here in the States, these games will be on ESPN+. So you can either wake up early like I will and watch them live, or you can watch replays of them, of course, on ESPN Plus on demand. So you're going to be able to see all these players play that are on the Thunder, and of course, just whatever other games you're interested in the FIBA World Cup in general on ESPN Plus. So ESPN Plus will be huge for this event because it was hard to follow exhibition play. You had to search for streams and search for opportunity to watch. Now it's going to be all streamlined right to you via ESPN Plus. But I believe Team USA will still play on FS1. If you're in the States and you want to watch Team USA. Nonetheless, this is going to be awesome. We're going to recap it all on Friday's show. We'll recap the first game, and then they'll each play on Sunday again. So we'll recap those games on Monday. And also on Monday, we're going to have your mailbag questions as well, as always. So drop your mailbag questions down below in the comments on YouTube. Also on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. This is going to be a very fun week as we have actual meaningful basketball. These games have stakes attached to them. These games matter to these players who have committed to play for their country. They're going to want to win them, and so we get to see them play some important games. Now, let's get into grading your takes. So we've done this before. It's usually an off-season staple of the show, and so if you like this format, we can continue to do it all throughout the season, but of course leading up until media day and training camp next month. But what this is just a fun little opportunity for you to express how you feel about the Thunder or the NBA or life in general, and give your take. And I will grade it on a scale of 1 to 5, using Peppers to grade your takes 1 to 5. So to give you a quick rundown of how this goes. First up, at Sono Fadu Ade, almost every team will fail to win a championship this year. That's a 1 on the Pepper scale. Pretty obvious, right? You're going to have an in-season champion winner. You're going to have an East and West winner and an NBA Finals winner. At most, that's 4 teams that win a championship. If they're all different teams in all those categories, obviously, whoever wins the East and West, one of them will win the finals. So at most, it's really 3. Quick math there. That's a 1. That's a 1. Now, Sublime, on the other hand, a great Thunder artist on Twitter, this verdict, this take, gets a much higher number. Jalen Williams will be an all-star this year, but so will Chet Holmgren. And I assume Sublime also will factor in SGA as an all-star, which would mean that the Thunder would have 3 all-stars this season. 1, 2, 3 all-stars this season. That is an absolute 5 on the 1 to 5 Pepper scale. And that's not to discredit any of the trio of players, but it is incredibly hard for any team to get 3 all-stars. And so when you're looking at this, on one hand, not only do the players have to be producing at that all-star level, but the Thunder have to be pacing for one of the top seeds in the West by the time that all-star voting opens and closes. So, by Christmas, all the way through the end of January, early February, they have to be a top contending seed in the Western Conference to warrant 3 all-stars. And so having that mixture of things happen has to be a 5 on the Pepper scale, even though individually they all have all-star level talent. It's the complete and totality of this take that make it hard to see. Leveling off back down the scale, though, is at MK325491. Mark Daigneault will win Coach of the Year. This take is a 2 Peppers take to me. He's got a great shot to win the NBA Coach of the Year. And in fact, the only way I see him not winning it would be if there's some new darling story. Some just off the top of my head would be like if Ime takes the Rockets to the play-in or the playoffs even. If he somehow gets that team to make that massive leap, he'd probably win Coach of the Year, obviously. If Nick Nurse weathers the storm in Philadelphia with all this James Harden stuff and the Sixers are still a 1 or 2 seed, I think that they'd give it to Nick Nurse. And so if everything goes sort of status quo, I think that this is Mark's award to sort of lose, because this award is a regular season award, but it's also up against your expectation level. And so that's how you see, Mark was runner-up last year. I mean, the team won 40 games. They were still below 500, but he was still the runner-up of the Coach of the Year award and would have won it had Sacramento not snapped a embarrassingly long, 2-decade-long playoff drought. If the Kings simply missed the playoffs, then Mark is already a Coach of the Year award winner. Billy Donovan, whenever the expectations were that you have a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs and then you take the Thunder to a 5 seed in the bubble, Billy Donovan, was getting Coach of the Year votes. And of course, he won a version of Coach of the Year. Nonetheless, doesn't matter. So that's kind of where this is not as hot of a take as it might seem on the surface. Because even right now, as expectations rise and anticipation mounts around Bricktown in Oklahoma City, the national expectation, while acknowledging the Thunder are a good team, projections came out today from ESPN that OKC is projected at 45 wins and a 7 seed. And so if this team does leap into a top 6 seed this year, which isn't out of the realm of possibility, especially, then it'll be Mark's award. If they even, just survive and get to the play and hit that 45 win mark, I think that still would be enough for Mark to win Coach of the Year, barring something just unforeseen happening. So I would give this a 2 because you can't lock it in. He's not for sure going to win Coach of the Year, just as the other one was like a for sure slam dunk. Only a few teams can win a championship this year. but he's got a really good chance to. So I don't think that this is a hot take. I think that this is pretty accurate for what will happen. So now you get the gist of how to play. We'll continue to play the game coming up. But first, I'm going to tell you right now, my good friends over at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/locked-on is where you should go to get started today. Folks, this is probably my favorite offer of all time across any platform ever because it's so fun to follow and fun to utilize, but also it is so advantageous for you. What you do is you go to FanDuel.com/lockdown and you bet on who will be the Super Bowl winner. We know the NFL season's here. Bet on who you think will win the Super Bowl. If you think a team will win the Super Bowl, they're also going to win a lot of games in the regular season. And for each regular season win, you're going to get bonus bets back. So not only do you have a chance to win at the very end of the season if you do pick the Super Bowl winner correctly right now, but you win along the way also in the regular season for bonus bets, which you can also use on spread picks and player props and over-unders and more. So it's just a great thing for you to win in the present and in the future. So it's like a double dip sort of thing here at FanDuel.com/lockdown. FanDuel.com/lockdown today. Go check it out today and pick who you think will win the Super Bowl and make it Kansas City because they're going to win it again. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Locked On Thunder. For sure, we're going to dive into all of your takes, but subscribe on all podcasting platforms, leave a review, and also follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. You can leave a review there as well. Let me know what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, how we can improve, because this is going to be one of the best seasons of Thunder basketball in terms of like entertainment, in terms of like just following it along in anticipation, and also the best season of Thunder basketball since we've taken over this podcast. So we're going to make it the best we can. Continuing on grading your takes at SSN_Devils. The Thunder will win 50 games this season. I'm going to give this a 3.7 on the Pepper scale. 50 games is incredibly hard, like insanely hard, actually, especially in this tough Western Conference. The only reason it's not a full-blown 5 or even notching the 4 on the Peppers dial is because there are some reasons to believe that this could theoretically happen. Last year, the Thunder were a top 10 defense leading up until Kenny Hustle getting hurt, at the beginning of March. They already have a superstar player, but they got better. They add Chet Holmgren, who will make this team a solidified top 10 defense, could even rival top 5, which we're going to get into later on. You're going to have your superstar player in SGA. You're going to have Josh Giddey and J-Dub, who looked improved this summer from all of their videos of them progressing. You're going to have a young team that cares about regular season games. And I just cannot guarantee you other teams care about the regular season. So with an improving offense, with a top defense, with a team that will want to win every single night and not load manage and not take days off, this can compile a lot of regular season wins for the Thunder this year. And they can be a team that sort of surprises some people with how they do it. Now, again, it's still going to be a 3.7, nearly a 4, but it's just not impossible because of all those things. But I would still say it is less likely to come true than it is likely to come true. At triple double NBA and at NSGA We Trust, they both said the same take. The take is that the Thunder will finish with a top 5 defense in the NBA. So if this was finishing the top 10, as Trevor Bryant said, it's a 1 Pepper. I think for sure this team will be a top 10 defense. I just, short of injuries, which we can't project and we can't even guess if they will or won't happen, short of injuries, I don't see a world where this team is not a top 10 defense in the NBA. So I'd give it a 1. Now, top 5, it's hard, but it's really doable when you factor in what Chet does and how Chet fits into the identity of this defense, of what Mark has cultivated his entire tenure in Oklahoma City. So I'm only going to give it a 3. It's bold. Top 5 is very great for this team, but they've improved every year defensively. Mark has never had a bad defensive team, even during the dark years of his beginning of his tenure. And the players that they've added, Case and Chet, and the guys that they've added, they fit the identity of what the Thunder like to do. And last year's team played the majority of the season as a top 10 defense. They're going to get Kenny Hustle back. They're going to get Chet Holmgren, who will hide and disguise their deficiencies from last year better than what they did last year. So I would only give it a 3. But again, top 5 is hard, and technically they could just like finish 6th by a negligible margin. But still, I really believe that they could do this. At So Dreamer, the Thunder will end up a top 5 seed in the Western Conference. I've got to give this one a 4 just because of how tough the West is. But it's not outlandish. Like, I understand the vision. I understand where you're coming from with this opinion. So I can't crucify this opinion and call it just like silly. But it is really tough. And I think that there's a world where as much as we anticipate such a big leap from the Thunder, and we anticipate such a successful season, and we want to see this team come together and be all in and kind of mirror the jump they took last year. That's incredibly hard. Like a 5-win improvement would be awesome. Like a 5-win improvement to get to 45 wins would be spectacular for this Thunder team. I think that the Thunder team is still not in the area where their win total determines their success. Now, with that being said, the Thunder should make the play-in at the very minimum. At the bare minimum, they should make the play-in for a lot of different reasons. Number one, they're a good team. Number two, just as you saw last season, when push comes to shove at the very end of the year, there is zero incentive for the Thunder to shut it down, and I promise you there'll be incentive for at least 1 or 2 Western Conference teams to shut it down when the dust settles. What I mean by that is, you look at the Dallas thing last year. Dallas shut it down the last couple of games. Thunder capitalized on it. They took care of business and they got to the play-in. The Thunder won't be doing that. So they should for sure get to the play-in. But I still don't think that if they don't hit a certain number or a certain seed, that it's automatically a bad season for OKC. I think that that this team will be able to show significant improvement, even if the jump in wins is only 2, 3, 4, 5 games. It doesn't have to be this monumental leap to 50 wins or to 55 wins or to 49 wins or 48 wins. Like, it doesn't have to be some massive leap to show improvement and make sure that you're still on the right track. So I'll give it a 4 because it's a tough Western Conference, but again, I could see the path to them doing it. So I'm only going to give it a 4 and not a 5 or anything higher than a 4. So Dreamer, I like where your head's at. I hope that it happens, but it's very tough to do in the West. At me_Juris, Jalen Williams, out of Santa Clara, of course, is better than Paolo Banchero. This is going to shock some people based on the rating, but I would encourage you to hear me out before we get up in arms about this. I'm going to give it a 2.8. And that's not to discredit Paolo Banchero or to even rank the two players. I think it's closer than a lot of national people believe it is. I think that secondarily, they're both in the right scenario for their skill set. They are both in the place they need to be. And so if you were to swap them on different teams and different roles, each of them look a lot different, for better or worse. Some things will get better for each of them. Some things will get worse for each of them. So at that point, if we can agree that they're both in the right environment for them, then it gets extremely hard to separate who is technically the better player, who is technically the player that would go ahead of one another in a ranking of any sort. I'll say that last year, J-Dub contributed a lot more to winning, but part of that was a product of his team. Now, I think that J-Dub would contribute to winning on any team that was actively trying to win. And Paolo was put in a much different scenario where he was asked to lead a team versus J-Dub, who was asked to, at certain points of the season, be the second best player. There were certain games where he was asked to lead a team due to injuries and anything else. But in general, he was asked to be the second or third best player on the team, which is still impressive for a rookie. Don't get me wrong, but it's different than being the guy. I think that J-Dub, though, had more sustained success last year throughout the season, which again was easier to do as a lesser option. But nonetheless, I think it's hard to compare the two players because of their environments and how different their roles are. But just as a pure, pound for pound player, I think what J-Dub brings to the table fits the Thunder very well. I think what Carroll brings to the table fits what the Magic need very well. So I think it's hard for me to separate the hairs here. So I'll give it a 2.8 because I don't think it's crazy to say that you'd rather have J-Dub than Ben Carroll for this Thunder team, but it's just too hard to decipher. Now coming up, we have another 5 on the Pepper scale. Another 5, a blatant 5, arguably should be higher than a 5. And we'll see if you agree coming up. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Folks, subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. And we're talking about your takes, grading your opinions, and if they are realistic or not. This one from my man at Brett HD3. J-Dub will win Most Improved Player, and Ousmane Dieng will break out to become the second best scoring option off the bench. This is a 5 Pepper take. A second-year guy winning MIP is going to be hard. Again, it's narrative-driven, it's storyline-driven, and some voters are against the idea of a second-year guy winning Most Improved because you're still in that area of your year of your career where you're supposed to be improved. You're supposed to be better than you were as a rookie. So that'll be tough. Right there notches you up the Pepper scale. Ousmane Dieng being the second best scorer off the bench, without the context of what you mean, when I see this opinion, what I'm envisioning is he's actually a top 5 scorer on the Thunder. So obviously Shai's the best scorer. Then you're going to have Chet and J-Dub be elite scoring options for the Thunder by osmosis, by a product of how they play off of Shai. Then you're going to have Josh Giddey, who got better and better at scoring as the season went on. If he's your best scorer off the bench, or one of your 2 best scorers off the bench, I think he's better than Lou Dort scoring. If this were to come true, he'd be better than Lou Dort at scoring. And then, pick your poison of who the second guy you want to couple with him off the bench is. That's a huge jump for Ousmane Dieng, which is a 5 to have both these things come true at the same time. So we're not only grading them individually, we're grading them as like a tandem of like these both are going to happen. And to have that all line up would be a 5 in my opinion. At Isaiah HLS_. J-Dub makes All-Star before Josh Giddey. It's a 3 because it can truly go either way. We have to remember that Josh Giddey has an entire country behind him and a very intelligent basketball country. Like the Australian fans in the comments and on Twitter and everything understand the game of basketball extremely well. And so whenever it is that Josh Giddey plays at an all-star level of production, that's whenever they're going to show their support and vote for him. And you're going to see this huge uprise of votes for him. And we've seen other players capitalize on having a country behind them once they get to that all-star level of production. And in some cases, like Zaza Pachulia, even before they get to that level of production that they never get to. But nonetheless, for Josh Giddey, that is going to be a feather in his cap in terms of specifically all-star, which is, influenced by fan voting. But also on his own merit, he could be an all-star before J-Dub. By the same token, it could go the other way too. So it's truly a 3. I don't mind this take. I don't hate this take. I don't love this take. It's just, okay. I mean, we'll see. We'll have to let it unfold. I would say that if I had to pick one to be the all-star before the other, I would probably go J-Dub, but I would change that opinion by the hour as I think about this question. At Beeson1228, J-Dub becomes a 50, 40, 80 guy next season. So for context, his rookie season, J-Dub turned in 52%, 40%, and 81%. I'm sorry. So he's somewhat on the right track. I actually wrote the wrong number down for Jalen Williams' 3-point percentage. It was actually 35%. I just copied the exact formula that Beeson gave us, but his actual splits were 82%, 35%, 81%. So what he'd have to do is improve his 3-point percentage by 5% and then maintain everything else. Now, you're betting on a few different things. I'm going to put it at a 4.5 pepper scale for a few different reasons. Let's list them out right now. It is hard as heck to do this. The reason you get to 4.5 is not because it's crazy or silly. It's just because it's so hard to do this. I could see a world where the field goal percentage dips a tiny bit to account for some more aggressive play from J-Dub. But even dipping a tiny bit could still get him at 50. So that's not the big red flag to me. Because he's going from 52. Dipping a tiny bit could be from 52 to 50. That's not the red flag to me. With the free throw rate going up, I think that J-Dub's a tremendous cutter. And with the style of play the Thunder are going to play with Chet and the spacing and SGA driving and everything else, I think that the free throw rate can go up for J-Dub in terms of his attempts. You can get more attempts as a cutter as guys rotate late over to him because you can't necessarily help a ton against the Thunder starting unit. With that going up, does he sustain his free throw success of 81%? It was a good number from free throw land, but he only shot there 2.5 times a game last year. So where does that level as you see more and more free throws? But the biggest thing, of course, is the three-point shooting. A 5% increase this year would be spectacular, especially whenever you consider it's not as though you can just do a reduction of three-point shooting and get there. Like he only shot 2.7 attempts per game last year from beyond the arc and shot 35%. He shot good attempts. He made a lot of timely threes, obviously, and 35% as a rookie is really good. But there's no way to fudge this, so to say. It's not as though he took 8 attempts and shot 35%. And then you say, well, now this year with Chet's addition and with the roster getting better, he can reduce those attempts down to 4 and be more selective and thus shoot better. So he's going to have to make a massive leap from three-point land. So that's really all you're betting on here is a massive leap from three-point land. The other stuff, we've explained it, but it could kind of just stay the same. The massive leap from 3 is why this is a 4.5 because it's just going to be very hard to do for anybody to go +5 in the percentage category in one off season. I am KevBot. Orlando is the best fit for a Damian Lillard trade, but Dame does not realize it. I would say it's a 4 only because the business of basketball, Orlando would have to overpay. Even if Dame, wanted to go there or didn't care or it didn't matter, Orlando would have to overpay a little bit. So how much are they overpaying to get Dame? What's the tax for going to a small market if this were to ever come to fruition? However, it'd still be a great spot for him. Sticking on Orlando, the question from @MK32941. Orlando will make the
playoffs.
So playoffs outright.
Playoffs.
I'm going to go 4.5 to make the outright playoffs. To make the play-in, I'm going to go with a 2. I think that they can absolutely and probably should, honestly, make the play-in the East. But a 4.5 for just outright top 6 seed in the East. I know the East is worse than the West, but that is quite the jump. And then let's finish it off with Daniel Bell. Daniel Bell, my good friend Daniel Bell. There's not a Thunder media member that can take me on and beat me on the court, or any team media. So with Thunder media, it might be true. I'll give Daniel that. It might be true. Because Daniel can actually ball. Like he's good. Can he stop Brandon in a one-on-one three-point matchup for a guy who typically sags off defensively? Brandon's one of the best shooters I've ever seen. He's one of the best shooters I've ever seen, period. I don't know if he can do that. Can he keep up with Michael's motor? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Is Nick Crane just absolutely him? Probably. But I mean, let's say you do beat everybody in the Thunder media, because those are really your only competition in Thunder media. So you could realistically beat all those guys. The entire NBA. And I've asked Daniel this and debated Daniel with this multiple times. He's including like former NBA players. Like Michael Cage, he believes he could beat the snot out of Michael Cage on the basketball court. And I believe that he's used the term that Michael Cage would be barbecue chicken before, which is just insane to me for Daniel to say about a guy who still plays basketball to this day, like multiple times a week. And also, I'm not so certain that Daniel could even beat Adam Francisco, who is a Lone Star Conference legend, much like myself. Lone Star Conference Broadcaster of the Year. No big deal. No big deal. But this is just insane. It's a 4.85. Because even if I grant you that you get through the entire Thunder media, which could happen, every other team of media, including the former NBA players like Brian Scalabrine, I think that Vince Carter does some work for the Hawks. I mean, come on. I think that JR could give you buckets, Daniel. I think if we got JR out there from Thunder PR, he would absolutely give you buckets. I mean, this guy was ranked ahead of Klay Thompson in middle school, whatever that story was. Slow down a little bit. Slow down. If you limited this to just Thunder media, I could give you a pass if you just meant Thunder media. Now, you expand this like Paris, she'd give you a bucket and she'd dominate you. Nancy, dominate you. Cage, dominate you. But if we take it as just Thunder media, you only have a few guys that are even going to be competitive with you, and that'd be Brandon, Michael, Nick, and you could realistically beat them. I wouldn't say it's for sure, but you could realistically beat them. We are getting way too crazy here. He also mentioned that he could beat Shaq. I don't care when the last time it was that Shaq played basketball. Shaq is going to beat Daniel Bell. But that's why we love him, because of his confidence. And he could spread that confidence and has spread that confidence to a lot of other people. It makes everyone better. So, to Daniel, to everyone else, be good and be good to one another.